don't let the left hand know what the right wants to do. You make sure you keep you a piece of change stashed away. No, I'm kidding. That is what Mama Joy said, though. What's the best marriage advice that we?
Well, I've heard.
Oh, I have a good one. His dad, before he passed, he always told us, don't ever, if you have a dispute within your marriage, do not go outside of your marriage and discuss it, because the person you're discussing it with, they don't know the intricacies of your marriage. They don't know your husband like that. They don't know your wife like that, and they're going to pass judgment based on what you said. So I always try to keep that in the back of my mind, and I'm like, yeah, that's nice. Because, like, you go outside of your marriage and you talk about the issues, and sometimes you might not really come back to the marriage and talk about it with your spouse. So it's still like this lingering thing that you've been fighting with your spouse in your head this whole time, and you've told your friends, but spouse don't know. So I would have to say that's probably been one of the best advices I've ever received.
And you don't know people's intentions either.
Right.
When you share outside, you don't know what's going on in their mind, and whether they have your best interest in mind or their only interest in mind, no matter whether it's a family member or a friend. So, you always got to be careful with that. And I think for me, there's been a lot of wisdom passed on throughout the years. I noticed that when I talk to older couples, they always say, don't go to bed mad. That's a big one. You hear that time and time again, but it's so true, because sometimes when we kind of get caught up in our feelings and we're upset about something and we internalize that instead of communicating it, things tend to kind of carry over and they fester, and a situation that could have probably been resolved in a 10-minute conversation is now, taking weeks on end to kind of repair itself because of poor choices in terms of when and where you chose to communicate.
I may not always seem like I follow this, but don't sweat the small things. And that may coincide with pick your battle, so I don't know how you want to say, but there are some things that'll last longer as far as me being irritated. But yeah, don't sweat the small things, man. Because a lot of times when you get into a place to where you're upset about something, or something that's small that's caused some type of conflict, that's when you then kind of get outside yourself, and you decide to have different thoughts that may cause you to do things that is not something that you would normally typically do, or respond and act in certain ways. And life is too short to just to kind of sweat the small things. But yeah, I think that's the best thing. Don't sweat the small things / pick and choose your battles. I think that was probably the best advice.
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know.
Here's a very close second. Keep people out your business. That might be first. And I realized that, but this with a lot of my friends being married, and how much they shared. Nothing against them, but and what they share didn't cause me to look at them different or cause me to look at their spouses different, but it just caused me to be mindful about what I shared with me and my wife. I didn't want no one to look at you different, right? Because I feel like you are a reflection of me. I am as you as well. So it's like, if you walking around, people may know certain things. It's like they looking at my wife totally different. It's like, I don't need you looking at her in any type of other aspect other than the one that she's presenting. So I do think that was probably like a 1B. Don't sweat the small things. 1A, don't let nobody, don't tell all your business. 1B. So yeah.
I'll say I know what some of the best marriage advice I've been given is from my parents, people that know me the most. I have a very, very close-knit relationship with my parents. And they were with me through the last marriage as well and kind of gave me advice that I was too young to listen to. But the best advice from both of them for this marriage is to understand my role and let my husband be my husband.
Yeah. I guess I could agree with that. Keeping people out of your business. Because, sometimes you have falling outs or you have disagreements. And if you share that, you may forgive and forget. But it's difficult for, people on the outside looking in to have that same level of forgiveness.
Right.
And so, you okay and you moving on and they still mad and they try to keep you there. And that's a very difficult road to try to balance. So I guess I could agree with that. But, and I'm sure I've heard some other things too. But I guess the biggest thing for our marriage that I've learned is to really just keeping the door of communication open, being honest, and learning when, I think as a wife, learning when, what, and how to say certain things. I think that's been the biggest thing that I've learned being his wife. Like everything that I feel, think, and believe doesn't need to be said. And even if it's something that I sleep on and I can't, rest and let it go, then I learn to pray and ask God for wisdom. Like, okay, this is something I want to say. I feel like this, but I know that it can be conveyed in a much nicer tone and attitude. So, just learning that. And it's crazy because I think he says it to me all the time. Like, you could serve me boo-boo, if you make it look nice on the plate. It's like, yeah, no. But I understand what he's saying. And it's like, that's really true. Like if I have a better attitude about what I'm saying to him, I do, and I have realized that he's received me much better. And it's something that even if he doesn't respond right away, that he can go on. It might be a day or two and sometimes a week, and then he can come back, and respond and be like, what, maybe I can see my part in it, or I still don't agree with you, but, here's the resolve in that. And for me, that works because it's like, it's not always about being right or wrong, but it's just about, what have we come to the conclusion, what are we going to do, and how do we move forward. So just like I said, learning the time, place, how and what I say to him, and vice versa, because I want the same respect. So I think that's been really, really big in our marriage.
Well, of course, with the premarital counseling, we got good advice. But I honestly have to say, just personal experience.
Yes.
Having been married before, okay, I know I don't need to do this again. So really, and honestly, a lot of it is just from personal experience from my past marriage that I knew, no, I do not want that. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. Same with me, as knowing what I had in the last marriage, what I didn't want to bring into this marriage, and being intentional with making sure we create the environment we want versus what we see going on in everybody else's marriage. Because what worked for one marriage may not work for ours. And we know we don't argue. We don't argue. We have heated discussions again. I get high pitchy. But it may sound like I'm yelling, but I'm really not yelling. I'm just discussing it passionately. And so that was one thing that we didn't want to bring into our marriage, was arguing, but learning how to talk. So I think our biggest thing is we talk about things. We talk about things, and for me, if I can't talk about it, I say that we'll talk about it later, when I know that what come out of my mouth is something that's going to be productive, and we're gonna get somewhere. He don't say it. If he can't, you don't say a whole lot when you really hot. He'll be like, we'll talk about it later.
Yeah. But I mean, sometimes we can go back and forth on things.
You think?
But we don't allow things to get out of hand. In other words, if we can't come to an agreement or so at that particular time, then we just stop and we'll come back later and discuss it later until we can come to an agreement, whether it's an agreement
To
to
disagree.
disagree or whatever it is. Yeah, and we don't let things linger.
Mm-mm. That's dangerous. We get it out.
Yeah.
It might go a day, maybe by the next morning. Typically we don't go to bed angry.
No.
We just don't have that, and it's not a fantasy or anything. We just choose not to live that life. We don't have to. I think I asked you one day. I said, "Do I need to like fall out with you?" And are you? Remember I asked you. I said, "Everybody doing it. It must be a fad. Do I need to fall out with you for you to fall in love with me again, or what? What do you need? What do you need?" He was like, "I don't need that." I was like, "Okay, all right, I'm just checking, because fads change, people change." It's like, "What do you need?" He was like, "No, I need you to stay like you are. We don't need that crazy." I was like, "I don't need that crazy either," because we both had crazy before. And we know what it looked like and what it feel like, and that's not what we want in this unity.
Can you describe a difficult time in your marriage and how you overcame that difficult time? If there's one, but I mean,
Ooh.
none of us are perfect, so
Ooh.
we all got issues. But can you describe a difficult time?
We don't have internal issues. Most of our issues are external. Building a blended family is difficult in itself, bringing all these different personalities together. Dealing with ex-spouses can be pivotal in marriages if it's not dealt with the right way. And I think that was our biggest thing, was dealing with ex-spouses and creating the sanctity between us, and then deal with them. So it wasn't divide and conquer, it was unify and conquer. Because if we didn't do that, we probably wouldn't even still be together.
But I had to learn that early though, because initially that wasn't necessarily the case. So I had to learn that, and it didn't take me long to learn that. But so within our first year of marriage, I began to learn, okay, I need to change what I'm doing, because whatever we decided has to be us making the decision, not me just making the decision. I tell her what I'm doing.
I would say it's the advice that I've given myself. I mean, I do take into consideration other people's experience and advice, and sometimes I'll seek that depending on who the individuals are. But I think in terms of our relationship, I've always had a stance, and I always say this to him, that how you start is how you finish. So whatever you did to get me or for us to have this relationship, don't stop. You gotta keep it going, because I want to forever be dated. I want to forever be wooed. I want you to treat me the same way you did to get me. So that's the advice.
And my advice, and follow me when I tell you this, my advice was when my mom was in the hospital and she was getting ready to have surgery, and she told my wife I was the one for her, that's all I needed.
So mom basically spoke. She said, "This is." This is usually a complicated question, but it may be easy for some it's not. We all have issues, meaning in our marriage. Sometimes we hit rough patches for one reason or another. You can answer this how you choose to see fit. Remember, you got home, go home with each other. But
We love going home with each other.
Right?
At the end of the day, you see how I did that? We love going home with each other.
I think my best advice was, and I'll share with for whomever is not aware, but you all know, this is both of our second marriage. My first marriage was, well, I'm not going to say a failure because I got two of the best things in my life out of that. So I'm not going to say it was a failure, but it wasn't successful. And I said, if I ever got married again, it's going to succeed, which means I had to do something different. You can't do the same thing and expect different results. So I said I had to do something different. But the thing that I had to learn, and I got from advice, was don't be afraid to unlearn something to learn it again. And I was like, what do you mean? Sometimes you have to unlearn something in order to learn it again. And I understood that to mean bad habits. You have to unlearn and break bad habits. Because you've done something so much one way for so long, sometimes you have to unlearn that in order to start doing it the right way. Because I always reflected on what I used to do, how I used to be. You know, early on when I first met her, I was a drinker. You know, I used to drink, especially when I had a temper. And I would drink. And one time I came in the house, we were living in Baltimore. She was in Simsey, and I came in the house, and I was super gone. And whatever she said to me, the bottom line was, this guy, we're not going to be together. Not like this. And then after that, I don't know if that was my come to Jesus moment, but my drinking stopped. To that degree. Now I drink now, but nowhere near what that was. So I say that to say, again, some things have to be unlearned in order to do things the right way. So that's just one of the things that I had to do differently. I had to unlearn what my father taught me in terms of being a man. Like, based on his guidance, a man was tough, his word was the final word. He was from Mississippi, he's a Southerner. So he was down woods, home man, my way, that's it. And I had to unlearn that. And at times it was tough because it was like, this man raised me this way, but yet if I want this marriage to succeed, I have to unlearn everything that he taught me coming out. Because those are some of the things that led to my failure in my first marriage. Like, I didn't know it yet, but I was just projecting and being him. So that was the biggest piece of advice. Don't be afraid to unlearn something in order to learn it the right way.
Once he, and I don't even think it was advice. I'm gonna learn to put us first and put you first.
Mm-hmm. Prioritize.
Yeah, prioritize your responsibilities and prioritize the things that you're going to do for others. A lot of times you may find yourself in a place to where you put other things before your wife, your family, or the case may be, or it's just been a routine that you're in a position to do things for others, and that sometimes may be a burden to the family or to a burden to your wife. So, and I think you might have told me that. I don't think nobody else told me that.
Yeah, I think that should be 1A. Absolutely.
Tomato, tomato. How you want to look at it? It's still one, whether it's 1A or 1C.
I think that was really huge for both of us, though, because, like he said, we both came from a prior marriage, so we brought things into the relationship that we shouldn't have, old insecurities, issues that we may have had with a former spouse. You might see an action that looks similar with your new spouse, and you say, I ain't doing that again. And so you kind of, react, right, as opposed to really evaluating the situation and seeing it for what it is with that person. And I know for me, I had anger issues, and so that's something that I had to tackle and deal with and unlearn. So to speak, so we both dealt with that a lot.
If I think back to something I would identify as difficult, I think it's always been a situation where communication broke down, or there wasn't a clear, effective communication, because I don't necessarily have to like what you say or love what you say, and you don't have to like or love what I say, but we need to say something, especially if there is something that is creating tension or, causing a major disagreement. And the way you choose to communicate is just as important.
Right.
Once you decide that, hey, listen, I need to kind of say how I feel about this, you still have to take the person's feelings into consideration.
Right.
You have to respect that person. And I think that is something that at times may have led to difficulty because as humans, and I'll be the first to admit it, can be selfish. We think about self and how we feel, or what I think, or how I look at the situation. Mm-hmm. And I know personally, that's probably where I found myself in treading into waters that I didn't really want to tread into because I didn't take the time to kind of think that through before I said it or communicate it the way that my wife deserves to be honored and respected when I communicate certain things to her. Even if I completely disagree with her, she's still my wife. She's still, my right hand. And, there are certain courtesies that I would give a stranger. How much does she deserve even more? Even though we are familiar with each other. And I think that's where kind of we make mistakes sometimes because we feel because we are that familiar, we don't have to kind of take those things into consideration, but that person deserves even more consideration because I know for me personally, without her, I can just imagine how drastically my life would be different.
Very drastic.
It would, yes. I'll be the first to admit it.
Dire.
Bad. Bad. Especially if I got these kids. Extremely bad. Extremely bad. So.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that.
I would probably say one of the things. I mean, I have several. But one of the things is, I would say I go back to my anger. I mean, there would just be times where just crash and burn. It's like, boom, everything is just totally wiped out for me, and I would storm out in anger. I just not deal with situations head on. And my communication wasn't up to par to help diffuse situations or to get to a point of being able to just have a sensible conversation and not be emotional about it or not allow anger to be the third part of the conversation and to dictate how we communicate to each other. So for a long time, I would say very early on, that was what drove me, and it was detrimental to our relationship. But I mean, to bring it full circle, I was able to overcome that again by trying to take some of the things that he would do to help try to diffuse it or to talk about it. So I would try to implement those things and just try to get myself under control. Because at the end of the day, I can control myself. I don't have to allow my emotions to control me. And she's still there, mm-hmm. but I don't give her an invitation to the party too much anymore. But she's still there.
Kids are difficult. They were difficult only because they're kids, number one, and they had to adapt. Her children and mine, young and old.
And I have grown
old.
children.
Right, that's why I say young and older. They had to adapt. When you run into that wall or you run into that obstacle, you figure out a way to work around it, without getting upset. Because one thing we always focus on is each other. We shouldn't let anything around us make us upset. So if we have an issue with the kids, we'll talk about it and we'll iron it out best way we can. And now is like we was talking the other day. Now it's just like
non-existent.
Yeah, it's like we ain't missed a beat. We've been here from day one. We all love each other, respect each other, the whole 9 yards.
One was, we were in Georgia. We were coming back. We were on the road, and it was raining. It was coming down raining. We were driving. We were having an argument. And, excuse me, it wasn't Georgia, it was Charlotte. I stand corrected. We were uptown, but it was early on because we didn't know the roads that good. We were coming back from uptown, and it was raining. And we were having an argument, a disagreement. And I mean, I was livid. So I pulled over to the side of the road and parked on the highway. Just stopped on the highway. It's like, I'm not driving one more inch. I'm not going anyplace. So we arguing, going at it. So we got back to the house, that one of the rental properties we got when we first started coming here. We got back to the house. We were got back into the disagreement, back into the argument. And before I know it, she gave me a 3-piece real quick. I mean, it was like a trained 3-piece. Like she had professional training. It was like one to the jaw and then come back, cover. But I'm going to tell you why that was so difficult. Because I came up in a household, my father was abusive.
He usually, cause I can literally like just not deal with it and just go on about my day, still be kind and cordial to everybody around me.
Other than me.
I was about to say, including him.
I can be cordial to you. I am
Yeah,
cordial
so
to you.
this is how that works.
And so he usually, well, babe, can I talk to you for a second?
Yeah, so
okay.
she
and then
usually,
he'll pull me aside, and then he usually gets the conversation going. Because have you ever seen the Kevin Hart special? Just put it out in the air, let it disappear. That's me. Just put it out there and let it disappear. You know, that's me. And he's like, we need to talk about this because you're clearly upset.
yeah. So I'm not getting no eye contact. You know, I'm getting one word answers. I'm asking questions and I'm getting like, what? What did you need? So, yeah, that's not a comfortable situation to be in. Yet and still she's laughing and giggling with the kids, and her and Danny are having these
I can
long, in-depth
compartmentalize.
conversations, and I'm over here on Gilligan's Island, so to speak, like, yeah, I still live here, you know. So, and that's when I will, you know, I'm like, listen, we just got to get
Yeah,
past
he's
this.
usually the one to come in.
And I'll apologize first if I made her feel a certain way, because that usually is not my intention. And then I will give her an opportunity to kind of tell me why she feels the way she feels and identify what brought us to this point, and let's talk about how we don't get here again. Because I don't like Gilligan's Island. I'm not a fan. I'm just, yeah.
And I told myself that I'd never put my hands on a woman. So when she did that, remember I told you I had to unlearn some things. The old me would have came back. But then I reflected on the promise I made to myself, never to put my hands on a woman in anger. So it took everything I had not to come back at her, because she hit me. She hit me. And we went in an empty house, and I had to take myself to another room. I sat in a corner, and it took every piece of me not to get up. And that was hard. That was hard. because it went against everything. Because remember I said, you know, I was raised by a man to be hard, to be struck, to be taunt, and you don't put your hands on me. But at the same time, I watched him put his hands on my mother. So that whole situation created a battle in me that was really, I'm battling my upbringing, I'm battling the fact that she just hit me, but I'm also battling the fact that I'm trying to be a better man and not be that man that I saw growing up. So that was hard. That was difficult.
And I think for me, the biggest obstacle that we have talked about all the time is both of us are very independent, strong-willed, stubborn people. We are. Both of us are leaders by nature. And I was in a marriage before where I was the leader, unfortunately. And then I met him who's a leader, so I wasn't allowed to be the leader. So, and I'm like,
I got this.
No! Who are you talking to? First of all.
Now, I'm the husband, remember?
And I'm your wife, right? So I had to learn how to, and that's something I had to grow within myself. I had to learn how to, number one, understand his role so I could respect it, and then understand my role so I could operate in it. But to me, that was the biggest, clash. Two leaders trying to figure that thing out.
And I said I had two. Sorry about that. I said I had two. The second one was, believe it or not, it was around our wedding time. It was in Maryland, and my parents had came to Maryland, and they were staying with us. Were they staying with us? Yeah, they were staying with us, I think. Yeah.
They stayed in the house.
They stayed with us, and somebody spilled some coffee. So we were like, we didn't know what it was because they had tried to get it up. So we didn't know what the stain was. So we said, what's this? Nobody said anything about this. So we were asking because we were like, we need to know what it is so we know how to treat it and get it up. That's the only reason we asked. Well, for some reason, they flipped out. You asking us about this stain, and they just went into everything they did for me and all of this stuff. And I was like, well, whoa, wait a minute. She only asked you, because I think Jaquita had asked, she only asked you so we can know how to treat it, So then he started coming down kind of hard, and I was like, first of all, we just got married 2 days ago. Second of all, you're not going to go off on my wife like that. This is my second marriage. My first one failed. You going to start my second marriage off coming at my wife like this? So then I literally had to put both parents in their place. And that was difficult because I never went against them on anything. I never went against them. But I was not going to stand there and let them come at her the way they did. So I had to make a choice, I had two things. I had to show her where she stood with me. Second, I had to show my parents, this is what you're not going to do. That's my wife. I love y'all, but that's my wife. So that was a tough time, a difficult time in my marriage where I had to sort of go against my parents, but at the same time let her know where she stood with me. So those were my two.
Just a piggyback on your first one. When you made that stance and did not retaliate back when I was physically abusive towards you, that showed me a whole different level of strength. Because to be able to stand in what you said that you were committed to never doing, but still being strong enough to show me a better way in spite of it, that to me changed a lot. And it took it took a while because it wasn't overnight for me, you know, to see him do that. But it changed how I responded, because I'm like, truly, if he can withstand this and be strong in this situation and not allow his emotions to cause him to physically respond back, surely I can get my emotions under control.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm better than what I was before I met her. You know, conviction is a mother. Conviction. You know better, you do better. You know what I'm saying? You learn, you understand, you walk in that path. And if you don't, you know your consequences. That type of thing. I've been growing. Tremendously growing. Tremendously.
Oh, yes. I feel that I've grown, especially as being a husband. I've learned a whole lot in this relationship than in my past. And it's been very beneficial for us.
Yes.
But it makes it a lot easier when you marry God's will. When you marry his perfect will and not his permissive will. When you marry his perfect will, God already knows that, okay, they can work together. They can flow together. But when you make a decision and you say, God, this is who I want, and God may say, well, that ain't my best for you. But if you're not going to wait and listen to me and you're going to do what you're going to do, then God, he will allow it to happen. But that was not his best. So you suffer the consequences when you choose to do your thing and not what God wanted for you. So you have to suffer those consequences.
Yeah, work it out. I know I had to work
You
it
have to
out.
work it out.
Ooh, I had to work it out. I worked it out 18 long years.
And that's not, and there's going to be a lot of things that you're going to go through that you wouldn't have necessarily had to go through if you wait on God.
I have grown. I have grown a lot. And I've grown a lot in this one particular area, in this blended family. Now, my previous marriage, we were blended, but this blended family brought on an area I was not familiar with and never wanted to be familiar with. And I can say that, can I? I never wanted to deal with baby mama drama. Like, that was for me, having baby mama drama was a deal breaker for me. And I'm so glad I didn't see all this stuff that I'd seen after we got married, because I probably would have been very hesitant, because I just never wanted to do baby mama drama. And because I am territorial when it comes to the people I love and my husband, and not wanting anyone to hurt him, and not wanting, even though the children aren't mine, I'm very protective of them. And so I take on that. I'm a mama. I don't know how to be not a mama. And so I take on that role when it comes to anybody's child that comes into my house, whether I birth you or you're the neighbor's child. I'm mama, and I'm gonna handle you like mama, and I'm gonna make sure you're safe. And so I had to grow in that, in knowing what battles to fight, not to take things personally, and not to become overconsumed in drama, and not to attack him because of what we were having to deal with. That was probably the biggest thing. I learned not to attack him. It's not his fault, because he can't control another person, but to encourage him and and back him and support him in decisions that he would make. Even if I wasn't 100%, I had to let him know, I got you. I don't really feel it, but if this is how you feel and this is what you think we should do, then let's do it. And partnering with him. So that was growth for me. Because typically in those type of situations, I tuck tail and run because I know it leaves me subject to the other person showing up, the other side of me that I worked so hard at killing coming out. Me making phone calls and saying, hey, come by and pick this girl up because I can't even deal right now. But it's been a growth process these last 6 years of just learning to get into a position of not even being bothered anymore. And it's not being bothered with the situation, just not being bothered. It doesn't bother me anymore. It doesn't have an effect on me, and that's growth. Because before it would be I'm crying and praying, or I need an answer because I don't really know how to deal with this. And now it's like I've got the answer, and I'm going to use this strategy, and I'm going to still love that person, and we're going to be good. Whether she's good or not, I'm going to be good, and I'm going to make sure that I do right by her. And it's made me a bigger and better person. I've learned so much. I learned a lot about me, about myself.
I think it's probably the same for both of us. Like you said, that conviction, when you meet somebody, and people always say, your better half, and you learn in church that, you got to be two whole and then you come one, all of those different things. But when you actually have it and you start to live it, it kind of starts to make sense. So like I said, we're both independent people, very successful, both, running our own businesses, doing our own things, running our own families, and then you come together. And like he said, that conviction of, because I'm a leader, it wasn't too many people that would check me. There wasn't too many people that would call me on my stuff, But having somebody that really loves me and that lives that life also, a lot of times I'm like, Mountika, you know good and well, don't do that. Don't bring that attitude for no reason, not today. So like he said, that conviction, just understanding you want better and you know better, so now you have to do better.
And one thing that really stand out in our relationship is the fact that we don't have competition with each other. You know what I'm saying? Who's right, who's wrong, who won, who lost. We have disagreements. We talk about it.
Life experiences.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely life experiences.
Yeah. I know early on, when she was still going to school, like the whole career thing was something that she was having a challenge with at times. And, I've always been fairly aggressive in that regard. And I think there was some of the things that I've kind of rubbed off on her in that regard. But in terms of us having kids now, she's kind of been my guiding rock in that regard, because there are times I look at the kids and I'm like, what in the world is happening here? Like,
They have lots of quirks.
what is that? And
Lots
she's
of
like,
quirks.
they're 3. He's 4.
It is what it is.
Exactly. Just
Keep it
that's what they
moving.
do.
Gotta
Listen,
keep it
almost
moving.
turn a blind eye. Just act like you know. And that's helped me, because I tell you, at times the kids will just have me in here like twitching.
Yes.
Yeah.
I can sit down like, okay.
And I just to throw in there, I think both of us have grown in the area of being able to receive criticism because of that as well. And when you see the other person actually putting forth the effort, that helps make it easier too, because you're living a certain life, so you can kind of check me on mine, but being able to receive that, like, okay, you know what, you're right, I was wrong that time. Sorry. My bad. So we have definitely grown. We have definitely grown. think that comes from understanding, like I said, yourself. People ask us all the time, what is a big thing about your marriage? And we tell them all the time, we're both selfish. You have to be, right? You have to make yourself happy before you can make anybody else happy. And one of the first things, when I first saw his children's mother, we were at the shop. She pulled up, and she was there, and I pulled up behind her. Now, it was still very new. So, typical, I'm not the one for the drama. So I sent him a text like, hey, I can go ahead and come back another time. I'm good. No, come on. It's just listen, get out. Let me introduce you. So I think what helps that is the individual themselves consistently laying down the laws. There is no gray areas with my children's father or his children's mother. They understand it. For her, it's not going to come from me. It's going to come from him. Unless there's something directly connected. For my children's father, it's not going to come from him. It's going to come from me. Because there is no question. We are on the same page. Whenever we have a conversation, we are present. Whenever we have school issues, we are present. So we're not and his father is married, their mother is in another relationship. Everybody is welcome. But this is our standard, and everybody has to follow these rules.
Play a factor in your marriage, and I ask that because obviously y'all have an age gap. Me and Nicole have an age gap. So does age play a factor in your marriage, or in the factor of you dating at the time?
I've always been like an old soul, so I've never been like the type that like to go clubbing and stuff like that. I mean, I did when I was much younger, but it was like I've never been that type because I had Deanie. And so I always had a kid to worry about. So running the streets was never a big thing for me. So I don't think it plays.
I don't think it may have played the part that people might feel that it plays, because when you feel a certain way about someone, you don't really think about what that age gap is.
Right.
There are times where it can play a part in how we communicate. Because I think for me, being older, sometimes I'm a little more stubborn and a little less likely to be open to certain ideas or thoughts. But I think that is where some of the balance comes in, because even when I get kind of set in my way, so to speak, she's always been great at just kind of opening the door or opening the book and helping me to understand her point of view. Even if I am completely opposed to it, at the end of the day, I can still respect where she's coming from and say, okay, yeah, you know what, we may have to kind of do things in that